found myself waking up at 2 a.m. at times thinking about Nebraska bred claimers on this card. So I'm pumped and ready.
All right, well, that's good news to hear. What I recall from the first go-around when we did this 2 weeks ago for a big mandatory payout day of the Dinsdale Lake Pick 5, Andy, was you made the remark, I don't think it was, I never met a $2,500 claimer I didn't like, because I sure have, and we'll see some that we don't like. But I think you said you don't have any prejudice against a $2,500 claimer. Is that closer to what you said?
I mean, there are subtleties. There is depth, in a lot of the races here, and I've handicapped. I found a couple nuggets, and they just they happen to pop up in cheap races, but they're just as valid as if you're handicapping the Churchill Downs card on Derby Day. And I probably put more time into this than I usually do in the Churchill Downs card.
All right, good. That's well, and maybe it has required it. That's for sure. When we dove into the Pick 5 wager a couple of weeks ago, you and I did not discuss any of our thoughts about the races. So we are going to find out what we think mutually, pun intended, on that. We were remarkably close. Did you find, before we get started, did you find a race where there was a single or a potential single to narrow it down to either one or two horses, Andy?
On today's card?
Yes.
But on a day like this, if I'm going to be making a pretty good sized investment, I don't want to be standing naked in any one spot, especially with a cheaper kind of horse who could, easily go off form. I mean, part of the challenge of the Pick 5s and Pick 6s is not only handicapping, but constructing a ticket in a smart way that gives you a shot for a big score, but also kind of lets you hedge and give you coverage if one key horse fails. So I spent a lot of time just mapping out my tickets as well.
Well, we've all been vexed or upended or buried by, when you handicap, there are horses that you like that you think can win, and then there are horses you don't like that could win as well. And when you get prejudice and a chip on your shoulder against those ones you don't like, as you said, standing naked. I love that analogy. That takes the dream of being caught in your underwear to the next level. Okay, Mr. Meyer. Oh, by the way, so we're going to go look at the fifth race, which is the first leg of the Dinsdale Lake Pick 5 on Wednesday, May 27th. Did you happen to notice the header in the daily racing form for
Absolutely.
the wagering options?
Gotten a few calls about it. Thanks for the little plug.
You bet. Of course, Andy Beyer is an author of a number of horse racing books. He is my idol when it comes to handicapping. His Beyer on Speed, his Picking Winners, his decades of handicapping for the Washington Post, and so on and so forth. So Beyer on Speed, and in this case, it's Beyer on Fawn if you have the daily racing form past performances. So certainly thank you, Andy Beyer, and the daily racing form. All right, it's an allowance, non-winners of 2, going 6.5 furlongs. So they have that long run past the grandstand before they get into their first turn. What are your thoughts here in this race, Andy?
Well, looking overall at this Pick 5, for the first 2 legs look to me to be the shortest priced favorites of the sequence. And in playing a Pick 5, you really have to have an idea of how you're going to handle big favorites. I mean, do you want to stand alone? Do you want to protect? Do you want to maybe take a stand and really try aggressively to beat the favorite? Well, when I looked at this race for the first time, I said, oh my gosh, this horse leaps off the page. I mean, number 9, Alex of Ice, is almost what I called in one of my books an omni-fig. I mean, every race of his life, he's got a speed figure better than any other horse in this race has run this year. And yet, when I looked at this horse a little more closely, I started having some qualms. He had a lot of good races in 2019 and early 2020. There were some like negative signs in his past performances. You know, Brad Cox, the top trainer, had dropped him down pretty sharply. Like, you know, let's get rid of this horse. He's laid off perform once. He comes back against a pretty kind of a weakish field at 3-5 and gets beat. It was still a good race. He lost the photo finish, but he was narrowly in front of Drastic in that race, and Drastic's no great shakes. So I look at this horse, and despite all those good races of last year, I'm gonna take that last race at face value and say, this is what Alex of Ice is now. Figure of 55, narrowly better than Drastic. Drastic had lost twice to the 3-horse back Chatter. So it doesn't look like to me, if you look at it that way, that this horse has a huge edge over the field. And there is a horse I like in here that I think is worth taking a chance at a price against him, and that's number 1, Front Office. Now, at first glance, it doesn't look like much because he's been trounced in allowance races here at Fawner 3 straight times. But every one of those races that he was in was won by a horse who was like a real killer at this level. I mean, those horses, the winners of his last 3 starts were all capable of running a figure in the vicinity of 70. The winner of his last won by 9. Scooter's Boy, who won his next to last start, went on to win 3 in a row. I think this horse has a significant class edge in here, and I'm gonna give him every chance, to beat Alex of Ice. I'm gonna use them in equal strength on my main ticket, and then a couple of the others like back Chatter and Drastic, I'll use it, in kind of on minor tickets.
Got it. Yes, and for people that don't have a lot to spend on this, and it's a mandatory payout, you might want to try to scrap up a little bit more than you could. But Alex of Ice, if you had to single, that to me would be one that you would. But I'm with you on back Chatter, and honestly, I drew a line through Front Office, but based on what you've said, I'm all on board now, Andy. So that's the opener, nice little allowance race, open company. On to the 6th race now. We get Nebraska Breds, which is an optional claiming, non-winners are 3 lifetime in this race. And we have some old class horses, stakes horse in there, fillies and mares. What are your thoughts here, Andy?
Well, my first thought, I hate to ever criticize morning line makers because they got a tough job, and we would all make embarrassing mistakes if we were doing it. But I would. I would lay 100 to 1. The Judge on the Run is not going to be anywhere near 7 to 2. I mean, she looks like a 4 to 5 shot to me. She won her last race, at this level by 3.5 lengths over the horses who are probably her main contenders in this field. And I've looked. I looked hard trying to, kind of come up with a sneaky horse, to use with her, maybe to try to get a price if she's falters, and I can't do it. I can't really make a case for anybody else that's solid. Could you?
Well, actually, I kind of did. First of all, you're right. It is not typically a sophisticated morning line that we see in our program here at Bonner Park.